All right. Hello, Idiots on Parade, the Too Ugly for TV podcast, bonus vodcast. We put the audio up, but it's basically a video. Barrett Antar Goodwin, musician in Philadelphia. Hello, my friend.
Hey, how are you, sir?
I'm annoyed. I'll tell you in a second. I'm Nathan Timmel, comedian in Iowa. The reason I'm annoyed is everyone's experienced this. It's very stupid, but yesterday I think I woke up and I went, okay, my hair is getting a little long. It's okay. And then today I woke up and I'm like, holy shit, I need a haircut. And so I'm like, all right, I'll just wear a hat on the podcast. And you put a hat on and I was like, oh yeah, then all I have is shadow right here. So I'm annoyed by where did I need this haircut? Like this poofy, like just out of control.
No, you could wear your hat backwards.
I actually did that for a half a second. Went, I could. Oh no, I can't. I'm not 12. So that was a no-go. So it's either the shade or the 12-year-old or I'll just stick with the try and get it up as poofy as possible, so it can be distracting as possible. So there we go.
That's perfect.
Yeah. Anyway. So much to talk about today, my friend. Interestingly,
Indeed.
Because anybody joining us for the first time, Barrett and I have known each other for more years than should be legal. And we just jump right into conversations because we know where we're going, kind of just through like old married couple osmosis. And the past few episodes, we've been talking religion. We talked to an atheist, then we talked to a Christian, then we talked to someone that's fluid in between. And I told Barrett, I said, it'd be interesting if you and I on the next one talked about forgiveness.
Yes.
And today we are recording on Wednesday, January 6th, when all hell broke loose in the Capitol. And that was interesting because there's going to need to be a lot of forgiveness to heal this country. I don't want to talk about that.
Yeah, and we're so good at that in this country, so it's going to be awesome.
So maybe we can talk about that, but I thought it might be easier, more interesting if we kept the stories personal and then maybe grew them. Or maybe just by being personal, we can talk about forgiveness in general. And maybe it'll, like I said, lead to overall not a solution for what's going on, but instead of just trying to attack a problem that is out of our control, because that's all my Facebook feed was today, was people that were angry and anguished and how could this happen? I thought how could this happen was the most interesting one. I'm like, this is the path we've been on for 4 years, or even longer. I was not surprised at all by today. I wasn't upset. I was just like, oh yeah, okay, this is when it happened. Who had January? It was like a pregnancy calendar where you bet on the due date of the baby.
What's the over-under on the whites revolting?
Yes.
Man, I wish I had placed a pool. I wish I had placed a bet with my friends, man. I could have made some money. I wouldn't have guessed today, but I would have guessed before. I would have said between January 10 and January 20, probably.
Yeah.
If I had a 10-day window, you know what I mean?
Right. But I probably would have gone on with Inauguration Day. It's probably too popular. It makes sense that today's a good day, the certification day. But if because I'm not smart and didn't see this coming at today, I saw it coming, but I probably would have gone with the inauguration. And who knows, it could still happen. One quick aside, and I thought this was really fascinating, and no one else did, because I wrote a status on Facebook and just put it out there like, this is fascinating to me, and not a single response. I was scrolling through Facebook, as I said, and seeing all the people saying, this is outrageous. I'm crying. I can't believe this is happening. I'm angry. The spectrum of emotions. And what I noticed was, as I'm scrolling, as I'm seeing this spectrum of emotions, I'm also every other post seeing, hey, fatty, buy this treadmill, work out at home. I'm getting advertising. And I thought the juxtaposition was just fantastic and fascinating because it's still a for-profit corporate website. We are the product they're trying to sell to us. And I had the thought, what if we had had Facebook on 9/11? We would have this massive outpouring of grief, but there would still be ads trying to get our credit card numbers in between people
Right.
expressing their emotions. And I like I said, I thought that was just interesting, and no one else seemed to. They seemed too wrapped up in what was happening. Maybe I take a
Yeah,
step back too quickly.
they're too busy looking at the cheese to see the trap.
That could be it.
Jesus.
Well, let's talk forgiveness. Told you, I asked you, I said, hey, can you think of a couple personal stories? And you said, oh, I can.
Mm-hmm.
I think I have two. Well, let me ask you a question.
Yes, sir.
How do you feel you do with forgiveness?
Oh boy. Recently, good. Historically, terribly.
Fair enough. I am sort of the same, but different in the sense that I don't know if I need to forgive a lot because I don't think I blame. And one of
Hmm.
the things that I was going to bring up is why I don't remember when it happened. I was an adult, so I don't remember if it was
Hmm.
my 20s or 30s because my wife gets mad at me. My daughter is 8 years old, but I can't remember her birth year because once it's yesterday, it just becomes a fog up here. So I can remember events. I just don't know when they took place. Um, Quick recap of my life for anybody that doesn't know me. You know all this, Barrett. Parents should have never been married. They were dating. My mom wasn't sure about my dad, but then she got pregnant, so I sort of sealed the deal. And unhappy marriage. More details than I should go into. The other week we talked about relationships, and I kept saying I'm not going to go into detail, and then I remembered I texted you and said, hey, we got to jump back on. We never hoard ourselves. So I jumped back on and posted your Katie Henry band and website and your website, and I said every time I said I'm not going to go into detail, I've already gone into detail. Buy my book. So I'm going to do that again. I'm going to talk broadly about a certain subject, and if you want the specifics, buy my book. Anyway, so my childhood, my life, and I don't know if this is in the book. It probably is. There was at one point in my adulthood, and I do not remember what the spark was that caused this fire, but I remember my mother. We're at her house in Madison, Wisconsin. We're at her house, and she is sobbing. She is just crying. And she kept saying, please forgive me. I did the best I could as a mother. Your father and I tried. I tried my hardest. I didn't raise you the way I wanted to. I could have been a better mother. And I just stood there or sat there or just listened to her. And I kept thinking in my head, and I told her this, I said, I don't have anything to forgive you for. I don't blame you for anything. I know you did the best you could. I never thought you went in with malicious intent toward raising me. And she seemed to like that, but she also seemed, I think, to need to get it off her chest, where she asked for forgiveness, where she wanted to own up to what she perceived, not my perception, what she perceived as her failings as a mother. And I have carried that attitude with me since then, that I do my best not to blame. I don't really forgive. I do, in a way, make note. I just sort of like, oh, that person did that. Interesting. Noted. I'll just make note of that. I don't get angry or vindictive. I just sort of, it makes a check marks in my box. Like even the other week when we talked about relationships and talk about Judy, who, cheated on, dumped, I didn't blame her for what she did. I wasn't happy about it. It fucking destroyed me. But on some instinctive level, I'm like, I knew not to. She was just doing what she thought was right. In my opinion, it wasn't right, but and we can wrap this around to today. As misguided and outright stupid as I think the people in Washington are, what they did today, they were doing it because they believed they were trying to help the country. There was a woman that got shot and killed today, and
Oh, she died?
she died. And this is going to get me canceled. Someone's going to pull this clip out of context and say, Nathan Timmel's an asshole. When I heard she died, I had no emotional response. I was just like, okay. I mean, not that I was supposed to, like, oh my God, this woman died. But I did have the thought, that's someone's daughter. Like, someone has pictures of her and is going to mourn her. And I try and reconcile the apathy I felt. Okay, well, she put herself in a stupid situation. She believes stupid things. I try and reconcile those thoughts with this is what she believes and she wants for America, as wrong as I think that is. Someone loves her. And it gets messy. So I have this apathy that I try and mix with understanding. And somewhere in there, I try not to blame so that I also don't have to forgive. And I'm not sure if any of that makes sense. And I'm not sure if any of it's appropriate, but it seems to be how I'm wired. Do you have any thoughts, or would you like to jump off here and talk about your perception of forgiveness and or how you develop and grow and treat it? Either path is fine.
Well, I keep getting distracted because I see myself over here in the corner, and I look like
I'm spilling my heart out to you about forgiveness, and you're looking at your baggy eyes.
I look like death warmed over, man. Good Lord. No, I heard everything you said. Just the last minute I saw I feel like I need a fucking sickle and a cloak and walk around. Jesus. I have a lot to say about forgiveness, I suppose. When it comes to what happened today, I'll work backwards, right? When it comes to today, I think what happened is this is the way, when you and I talk about this stuff and we come to the conclusion that racism hurts white people too, this is how it hurts white people, because it has filled those particular people with a belief system that makes them predisposed to believing certain kinds of things. And some of the stuff I heard today, I heard a person who was standing next to that woman, I suppose, or somehow or claimed to be, whatever, said, well, we broke the windows with the flagpoles, and then when we were crawling through, they shot her. And he was shocked.
Yeah, and
I was like, you're breaking into a federal building full of senators or whatever, and you're breaking in, yelling and screaming, and they shot you. What were they supposed to do? And then I talked to a friend of mine today who was there, one of his friends was there, and he thought his friend was going to go, whatever, make fun of these people, because my friend's an asshole liberal. And and it turned out his friend was going to support Trump and them, because he's an asshole Trumpy, right? So maybe he's not an asshole. Maybe he's perfectly nice. I don't know this guy. But what my friend said, he was shocked that was why his friend was going. But he said what was interesting is his friend, when the cops were pepper spraying him and stuff, his friend was like, what are you doing? Why are you doing this to us? We're on your side. Like, that's what they were saying to the cops. Like, as if, now again, I'm not a mind reader, but it sounds as if what he was saying was, you're one of us. What are you doing? And when I watched them bum rush those cops, I was like, what happened to Blue Lives Matter?
Yeah.
Where was all that today? Where was all that Blue Lives Matter today? Like if
Well,
Blue
not
Lives
just
Matter, if you should just listen, if they just listen, they wouldn't get shot. Yeah, and you know what happened? These people didn't listen, and a woman got shot. And I think that's horrible because I don't think it should have gone down that way. One, I think they should have been using rubber bullets at best, like at most, on
maybe
civilians.
maybe
Except it's the
outside.
fucking place where all the senators are. It's
Well,
like these are the people who run the country. Like if you but like everybody acts like this is unprecedented, but like in the late 60s, early 70s, Bobby Seale and a handful of Black Panthers were using their Second Amendment rights to walk around with their AK-47s,
yeah.
and they were marching in Washington, and they walked into like the Capitol building or one of the buildings, and they happened to walk into a room where there were a bunch of like senators or congressmen or something like that, and that made it a crime, right? Like what they were doing up until that point, it was perfectly legal. But the minute they walked in that particular room, it actually became illegal. And they went to jail for a long time. And it was, they had no intention of doing anything. And it was just like, whatever. And today we're watching people get shot for what they called a peaceful protest when they're storming barricades and kicking in doors and breaking windows. They called that a peaceful protest. And I was like, that's like, there's a sense of like, when we talk about the idea of privilege, that's a weird thing to think that that's okay.
I
Do you
mean,
know what I
there's
mean?
so
To
much
not
to
see the
unpack.
irony in that. It's weird to me,
There's
you
more
know?
irony than we should be able to unpack, because not only the what happened to Blue Lives Matter, but these are also the same people that over the summer of 2020 were screaming about Black Lives Matter protesters, saying shoot them, screaming the
Right,
exact opposite. They're out there protesting, so they should be shot. Fuck them. These are the
right.
same people screaming that.
Exactly. And it, this is what I mean when I say the racism affects them in a way that's almost, it's not worse, but it's almost worse. Like at this point, right? Psychologically, I would say that the delusion that white people, not all white people, obviously, like have, because like for years, Black people believed that stuff was true too, right? So, but then we came to the point where we realized it was a delusion that you guys, not you guys, but you know what I mean? We came to the point where we realized it was a delusion and it was ridiculous and that we're absolutely human and this is absurd. And so lots of things happened and shifted and changed. But there's a point at which when we talk about the idea of privilege, it's not meaning things like all white people get a check in the mail. It means it's this idea that somehow your beliefs are correct at all times,
Right.
right?
Even
Like
when
that's a
contradictory.
weird, right? Even when it, and I'm not saying that Black people don't do the same thing because we were raised in the same system.
Yeah.
We're it's the same thing. Like we had faulty beliefs about ourselves, and you guys had faulty beliefs about yourselves. And over the last handful of years, we've all come to different kinds of reckonings. You know what I mean? Personally, publicly, privately, as groups, as individuals, whatever, like things have started to come out and 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 groups have evolved since these times when these original ideas were put in place. But the way that things grew out of them, there's just like a real, it's like real problematic. Like because what you said earlier is really true. Like everybody's convinced that they're right.
Yeah.
Like everybody's convinced that what they're doing is right. Like those people believe that what they're doing is for the best of the country. They don't understand that really they're being guided by a warped sense of what I would argue is shame and real obvious psychology, you know what I mean,
Yeah.
that leads them towards beliefs that are so self-serving that it's unfucking believable, right? And I would argue that the same is probably true for all people. Do you know what I mean? We all function like, and this will tie right into the forgiveness thing. I'll go right to it. Right. Whatever mental leap I just made in my head, you guys will have to make with me in a second after Nathan says what's on his mind.
Well, before we get too far away from it, because I don't want this to get lost. I've been listening to you, but obsessing at the same time because I really want to get this out there. When you said, made the passing comment about white people getting checks, that's the Jews.
You're an ass.
That'll get me canceled. Anyway.
But here's the thing. Here's what I'll tie it into the forgiveness thing. And you guys will just have to make the leap from what I was talking about to where I am right now, and just follow the bullet train in my head that goes from thought to thought.
At least that sounds linear. Mine's a pinball machine.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Seriously, mine's one. It's not even that. You ever see those fairgrounds where there's like a board with a bunch of nails in and a piece of plexiglass, and you drop the marble in it, and you just
Pachinko?
It's like something like that. I don't know, but something like that.
No, that's a boxer.
It's something like that. But like, I'm largely guided by, like, I feel oftentimes like a slave to my past.
Yeah.
In the sense that, like when you talk about with your parents and stuff, like my fundamental ideas of relationships were based on how I saw my parents interact. My fundamental ideas of friendship and value were based on things that I got rewarded at or chastised for. My sense of values were basically what I got rewarded or chastised for. That's how they got imprinted in me. They weren't like we're pre-wired for language, but we're also pre-wired to be part of a community. And if that community is your family and your family is dysfunctional, you get wired to be part of that, right? Like we're not pre-wired to know English. You're just pre-wired for language, right? So if we just dropped you in the middle of Japan when you were born, you would learn Japanese. And you would just learn it just same way you learned English. And it'd be no big deal. It's not like you're pre-wired. Like to a certain degree, right? If you take an Eskimo child or Inuit, there isn't that the proper term now, right?
Eskimo is going to get us canceled too.
Right.
This is the cancel podcast. We'll say everything incorrect and be canceled.
Right. But if you take an Inuit child and took it to Mexico, it would have a horrible childhood because it would just be so hot all the time because it's biologically designed to be in the cold after many multiple generations of living in cold. It is selected for that, right? But in a language or a mental
sounds like you're getting dangerously close to Jimmy the Greek saying that black people make better athletes.
I know. I mean, come on.
I mean, the proof is actually there. Not hockey.
No, but what I mean is that there's something to be said for that.
Yeah.
Like that's like a real thing, right? Like people who live off, like the reason why like half the African Americans I know are lactose intolerant but won't admit it, but they just are, is because just for tens of thousands of years we just didn't eat that kind of stuff. Do you know what I mean? This dairy wasn't necessarily a part of our diet in that way, right?
I'll do you the same thing.
I don't think that's racist.
I'll do you.
It also may not be true what I just said, but
it could not be. But most of the black people I know, you included, use the exact same references you did with the Inuits. You have always hated the cold, whereas I've never minded. I have Viking, hunky, Nordic blood in my system, where it's like I kind of like winter.
I can't stand it.
Yeah, and you hate it.
Yeah, I don't. Like
I don't know if that's a white black thing. I don't know if that's an African Northern Europe thing. And if we suggest it is, then we get shouted down because everybody's equal and everybody
right. Absolutely
is
Well, all right. Well, let's get back to safer territory about those Jews.
Oh, it's a good thing you caught me after the drink.
I actually talked to one of my Orthodox friends today. It's so great to catch. He's fucking fantastic dude. He's a great guy. He built some of my favorite guitars. He's just an amazing cat, and I talked to him today, and it was really cool to talk to him. Anyway, as I was saying before you
Should I
said
say
something
I have a
smart,
Jewish friend too?
if you
Now,
want,
white people always talk
see,
about
you'd be
their black
lying.
friend. This is the
Right.
first time I've heard a black person talk about their other friend.
No,
Everything I
mean,
said is okay.
no, I don't even think that. I mean, I think that he would think what I said was actually kind of funny. Like, because he knows I'm just joking. It's like,
Oh,
it's jokes, baby. These just jokes. So Eddie's just joking, baby. But,
okay.
anyway,
Forgiveness. Don
so,
Henley has been
okay,
thinking about it.
so, you're funny. So, if we're pre-wired for community and the community is our dysfunctional family, and that's how we get our brains just wire around that, right? Our values and all that stuff, right? In one way, shape, or form, it's a response or reaction to the way we were raised, right? To a degree. Again, the fuck do I know, right? But
It would
that's what it
explain my
seems.
apathy, but continue.
But my thing is that, like, if I think about all the traumatic things that happened in my life when I was at an age in which I would have believed in Santa Claus, so those things would have seemed true to me, right? Whatever dysfunctional shit I learned from teachers or parents or friends or whatever, I believed it in the same way that you would have believed in Santa Claus and the Easter Bunny and the Tooth Fairy. You know what I mean? And yet, but at a certain point in my life, people told me that Santa Claus wasn't real, the Easter Bunny wasn't real, and that the Tooth Fairy was my parents, right? And I was like, okay, cool, got it. But no, but they didn't come along and correct these other things that I believed. And I continued to believe them for a long time because there was no contradiction. Not only was there no contradiction, there was social proof that it was a reasonable way to be. And that's not anyone else's responsibility. That's my responsibility. Ultimately, after a certain standpoint, it's my responsibility to deal with myself, right? But in order to do that, I had to forgive myself for not seeing it sooner and doing something about it sooner. And I couldn't figure out how to do that. Like, I couldn't do it. Like, I couldn't figure out how to let myself off the hook. And then one day I realized that in order to hold on to the resentment that I held against the people for doing what it is that they did and or didn't do, I had to hold on to the effects of that resentment, right? Like what they did, right? So in order for me to be pissed off at my second grade teacher for doing a bunch of, like, what I perceived at that age as really racist shit to me, still do ultimately, but like, I have to then let what she did affect my life in a negative way in order to hold on to the resentment. Does that make sense?
It does. And I have two thoughts. One I want to talk about, one I haven't digested because obviously I'm listening to you and I'm making it selfish. I'm thinking about me because
Of
that's
course.
what people
That's
do.
what
But
we do.
yeah, I'm just saying that everything you're saying makes so much sense, and it wraps around to my childhood, which was a series of movements. Oh, I'm going to live here. I'm going to make a bunch of friends. Oh, my dad's going to get fired. We're going to move. I'm going to lose all those friends. So we're going to live here for a year. I'm going to make a bunch of friends. And both my parents said this to me when I talked to them when I was in therapy and I talked about my life, and they weren't talking. They still don't talk to one another.
Wait,
They
not at all.
independent.
Like, they don't talk at all.
No. My dad still blames
Okay.
my mom for everything. It's
He got a
been
new woman that he loves.
yeah, I don't even go there.
Okay.
We'll unpack that another day.
Yeah.
Um, independent of one another, they both told me that I changed in seventh grade because that was the one move too many, that I was always a happy,
Mhm.
gregarious, outgoing kid. And when we did that final move in seventh grade, I just shut down. It was, all right, I'm done. I've met and lost every friend I've ever made. And that became internalized, that if you make friends, you lose
Mhm.
them. And that would explain my understanding and what I call apathy toward other people, where, oh, you did this really shitty thing. Well, I don't blame you. You're just human. That's what humans do. Humans are shitty. So I don't have to forgive you because I don't blame you. And listening to you, now I'm wondering what's fucked up in here that I don't want to confront in myself, so that I don't have to forgive myself, because that seems more difficult than just letting myself off the hook by going, I don't blame me for anything because I had a shitty childhood. I don't think that's what I do. I think I'm very hard on myself, but you've challenged me and I don't really know. I don't have an answer. But the other thing I wanted to talk about, and we can circle back to this, because I won't let myself off the hook here. If you want to challenge me, go right ahead. But talking about formative years and childhood, I've seen over the past few weeks, especially as we're in winter now. The summer was easier for quarantine and COVID, but a lot of people talking about how, oh, what is this doing to the kids? Oh, our kids are being destroyed. I can't. And I read these posts and I'm a dick, but I look at them and I go, you're doing that to your kids though. If you're being neurotic and not handling COVID well, then they're not going to handle it well, because my kids are fine. I mean,
this is just life to them.
Exactly. It's
just
hey,
life.
sweetie,
They don't know
you got to put on a mask. So they put on a mask.
Yeah, they don't know.
Literally told them it's a disease. It'll go away. We're going to get a shot. They're working on it. But since the beginning, when it happened, it was, this is how you adjust. And I knew that from being old and aware and reading books and understanding the world around me, because you talk to people that lost siblings, and this is horrible what I'm going to say. I've never had it happen. You read about like a 5-year-old that lost their 7-year-old brother or sister, and they say, and you say, oh my God, that must have been heartbreaking to destroy you. And they're like, no, it just they were there and they were gone. And I was sad and I didn't understand it. But you pivot and you react how your parents are reacting. If your parents grieve in private, but try and raise you to be loving and don't take it out on you. And I mean, kids can adapt to anything. Kids can, they say,
highly adaptable.
Yeah. Here, one more example, then I'll shut up, because this is better than a sibling, that horrible thing I said. I read someone talking about how awful it was that they do shooter drills in school. Oh, these kids, what are we doing to the kids with shooter drills? And the first thing I thought of was, well, when I was a kid, we had Cold War drills where you got under the desk and put your hands over your head because that was going to save you from nuclear holocaust. But we also had fire drills and tornado drills. And it's called preparation. And if you tell a kid, hey, this bad thing happens, this is how we prepare for it, that's one thing. If you, oh my God, this thing happens, that is what will instill fear, not the act, but how you present it. Because a school shooter is scary and horrible and awful, but so is a tornado, and so is a school being on fire. A drill is a drill is a drill. And how you approach kids with information is how they will absorb it. So anyone posting that, oh, we're destroying kids, makes me say, you're destroying your kid. If you are not handling it well, you're going to push that onto your kid. Kids are malleable. All right, take everything I've said and run with it. Me being an apathetic asshole, me letting myself, anything you want, or just talk about anything you want to as far as forgiveness. And do you,
I mean, I wonder, like in your case, I don't know, but what I guess my question would be, well, here's what I'll say. In my case, I understand. I guess what I know about myself is that I am the I said that like I'm the greatest mystery I've ever come across because I don't understand myself at all. I understand other people, but that just sounds obnoxious when it sounds like that. But it's not even that. It's more like, it's not even I'm the greatest mystery. It's more like at the end of the day, if you gave me an exact itinerary of your life, I could tell you how to live it better, probably because I can see you objectively. And if I gave you the same access to my life, I give you 100% access to my life. Well, let's say you just lived, if you could magically live my life for 2 weeks, you could come back and be like, okay, dude, here's what you need to do. You know what I mean? Because you could objectively come in with no preconceived notions of anything and be like, okay, here's what we got to do. And I feel like I can be aware of all those things and I can get myself to do a lot of them sometimes. But there are certain things I just can't get myself to do efficiently or effectively. And I don't know why. I do know that it's like I do know sometimes what the causal agent is. Oh, it's because in fifth grade, this girl kicked me in the nuts while Wham was playing or something. And so every time I hear George Michael, my nuts hurt. You know what I mean? I don't know.
Do
But
you know where you got that from?
where? No.
That was our visit to the Scientology Center.
Uh, is that what you said? In
No,
Scientology?
no, 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 no.
Oh.
Okay, quick side story to
Oh,
anyone
right. Oh, when
listening.
they talked about the football player.
Yes. Okay,
Yes.
so
Okay. Right.
yeah, so
But
Barrett and
that
I
is
quickly
true though. There's a level of truth to that.
let me explain it to people that don't know
Yeah.
what's going on because well, you
Yeah.
just did, but we lived in Boston together, and there was a cute girl on Newberry Street that would stand there and say, "Do you want to take a personality test?" And we're like, "We like cute girls, let's do it." And we didn't know it was Scientology and didn't care. I look at Scientology like I look at anything else. Like, I don't understand the difference between it and Christianity and Judaism. And anyway, that's just me. It's all. So we go to take
Boy,
this test, and
this show is just going down the tubes for cancellation remarks. God,
hey, that was me being very inclusive to all religions.
really, that wasn't you comparing Christianity and Judaism to Scientology. That
Well, it
was
was
you
me
being open
dismissing.
and fair,
It was me dismissing.
them equally. Right. Of course. Well done, sir.
So
Anyway,
the thing you just described, they showed us, and it was like a bad. It was like, The Simpsons, whenever they would show a reel-to-reel film in the classroom, and it was, I'm Troy McClure, and this is what, and it was always sketchy. They showed us this sketchy black and white reel-to-reel film. I don't even think it was in VHS, dude, or was it real? Maybe probably VHS.
I don't know.
But it was black and white and old, and like it seemed sketchy. And I don't mean sketchy like suspicious. I mean poor quality.
Yeah.
Anyway, this football player gets hit. And as he's blacking out, someone says, he'll never walk again. And he wakes up in the hospital and goes, I can't walk. And so Scientology searched to the point where he heard, I'll never walk again, and said, that's why you can't walk. And then he could walk. And so that's where you got your, okay, I got kicked in the nuts while listening to Wham. And if I can trace to that, that's the first thing I thought of was our experience with Scientology.
Absolutely.
Was that film. So basically what you're saying is Scientology is real.
Well, I mean, I think in that particular way, I don't think that I don't know that it's that simple. Right, if I get kicked in the nuts while listening to Wham, every time I hear George Michael, my nuts hurt, right? Like, I think that's a bit of an oversimplification. But I do think that, like, if you hear certain messages repeatedly or get certain values beaten into you repeatedly as a child, not even beaten in, just you get it from all angles, they grow up and they form belief systems which help you form your personality, which help form all these things, and your identity forms around these certain kinds of deficiencies almost. Do you know what I mean? Like in certain ways, my personality formed around a certain kind of deficiency. And what I find fascinating is that, like, when you're in a relationship with somebody, you look at them and you think, what are you, fucking stupid? Like, you could just do and blah, 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 right? Or not always, obviously, but like this is where the forgiveness part comes, is I realize that I can be really quick to judge other people for not overcoming their shortcomings and their deficiencies. But when it comes to mine, I think I have good reason not to be able to overcome mine, but they somehow should be able to overcome theirs. And it is through forgiving other people and realizing that they're just human that I was able to circle back and forgive myself, because the same judgments that I levy upon other people are the same ones that I judge myself by passively, right? Like this, I was actually talking to somebody about this just this afternoon. Like the
Was it your Jewish friend?
it was my Jewish friends who I have over for dinner all the time. I don't because I don't keep kosher, so he won't come over. um, but um, when you look at somebody that you respect, that is a real thing. How people earn your respect, right? But it's also how you earn your own respect, you know, right? Like if I look at a musician that I respect a lot and I don't do what they do, I I don't earn my own respect, right? Whatever's the bare minimum it takes for me to respect someone, whatever that line is from I don't respect you to I do, I have to stay above that line also, or I actually don't respect myself. And when I don't respect myself, I treat myself as if I'm not worthy of things because I don't actually respect myself. And how do you treat people you don't respect? Right? Like there's a certain way that I treat people that I don't respect because I'm kind of a dick. And I treat myself that way too when I'm not earning my own respect. And it becomes a vicious cycle because the more I treat myself that way, the harder it is for me to get up and earn my own respect. So it becomes this cycle. And I found that by just kind of letting other people off the hook for all their shortcomings has allowed me to let myself off the hook, which has then freed me to then go about the business of earning my own respect. Does that make sense? It's a bit circular, but
No, it's good.
That's where
Circular
I
is
am.
good.
Yeah. Anyway,
It's
so that's forgiveness for me. That it means a lot because like that's what I mean. Like I'm a judgmental fuck, you know what I mean? And I have been for years of my life, not because of any other reason other than just because it was the way I was, I don't say conditioned, but it was just the thing. It's just what we did. Like everybody I know, super judgmental. We all sit around and talk shit about people all day. And once I decided to not be party to that, it didn't stop it from going on in my head about me in the ways in which I would have done to other people too. It was just silent in my head. It was just more self-defeatist than it was, it was the same kind of judgy bullshit. You know what I mean? I really had to, and I'm still working on letting it go so I can really just not be a slave to my past. That it is forgiveness and gratitude that has allowed me to not be such a slave to my past. It's really weird. Weird thing, you know?
Well, it makes me circle back to something you said earlier that you and I've talked about probably without recording more than we have talked in recording it, because the idea that at some point, I'm trying to phrase something you already said just differently, even though I don't need to change it. But
Mhm.
at some point, you have to own up to your own actions and take responsibility for who you are, and then move forward from there. And because otherwise, you're continually pointing fingers and laying blame. And I think that's something my kids do right now. And every time I see them do it, my son is hilarious because he will literally be doing something. He does headstands and rolls places instead of walking. And if he rolls the wrong way and bumps into a wall, he goes, "Ah, stupid wall! You shouldn't have been there." And I'm like, and I'll point out, buddy, you can't blame the wall for that. And I do that with my daughter. I can't. Like if you just blame people for everything, then you take no responsibility on your own shoulders. Like
Right.
from the smallest, from bumping into a wall to the largest, which is anything. It can be anything. That guy cut me
Yeah.
off in traffic. Fuck him. I hate him because he did that on purpose. Guy was probably clueless. He probably had no clue. Shit, I didn't realize I cut that guy off. Anything. When you get in the pattern of blaming other people, then you take no responsibility. And I
Yeah.
don't want to blame anyone for anything. And I do want to take responsibility for my actions. and I don't want to be beholden. Like this gets messy because I don't want to blame other people. I want to be responsible for my own actions, and I don't want to blame my childhood for who I am today. I want to overcome my past. Being human's messy. Being an adult is messy.
I mean, God's a sadistic comedian, if there is one.
Yeah.
Like, this is like, it's a cruel and unusual thing to burden humans with the kind of neuroses that we're capable of, you know, and the ways that we can be triggered, and the ways in which our biology and psychology can be completely used against us to come circle back. You know what I mean? They can completely take our shortcomings and market them towards us in a way that is so detrimental, and we can't help it. You know what I mean? Like, the computers beat the best chess players easily these days. Easily, they beat the AIs, whoop the masters like it's nothing.
We watched
You know
it
what I mean?
happen. You and I watched the first computers lose, and then we watched them win once. And I mean, like, this happened in our lifetime. We watched computers lose to humans. And
Yeah.
I'm sure you remember the days where
It was Big Blue lost, right? Didn't
yeah,
Big Blue lose the
Deep.
first time and then
Was it
won
Deep
the
Blue?
Deep Blue?
Yeah,
Whatever.
I think Bobby
Deep
Fischer
State
might have
Blue.
even said a computer will never beat a human, and the scientists were like, "Oh yeah."
Right. Yeah, and now, and
Or
those same
Kasparov.
computers, but those same computers now work for Facebook
Yeah,
and Instagram and YouTube and Google, and they're, you know what I mean? Like, come on, man, we don't have it. We're done unless we can tell them to stop monetizing our weaknesses against us. We're done. Like, because I don't think we can beat the computer. You know what I mean? You can disengage, but once you engage, you're done. Like, you know, like, you don't accidentally find yourself fucking flossing your teeth, but you accidentally find yourself scrolling through Facebook and Instagram all fucking day. You know what I mean?
I used to have a joke somewhat similar to that I'm trying to remember right now. It never really worked, so I never fleshed it up. It was the idea of involved gaining weight, and it was like, chocolate tastes good. You never binge broccoli, just like, oh, I accidentally ate a whole thing of broccoli. I accidentally ate an entire candy bar, or you just keep snacking on, salty sweet treats taste good. There's a reason cauliflower sucks.
Yeah, I mean, Ray Kroc monetized our biology against us. Dude started McDonald's, he just took our need for empty carbs and sugar and shit and mashed it up and literally like weaponized the food against us. Like, I mean, this shit just tastes good. And it's just what it does. Like even before all the additives and all the bullshit that they put in it, like, go back to the McDonald's of our childhood when what they would consider bad back then would be considered organic today. Almost. You know what I mean? Like it was like, back when shit came in styrofoam and shit.
Just the McDLT.
All right. Oh, that was so good. Holy shit, those were so good.
My favorite was always the quarter pounder.
You know what I found out the other day? Completely ridiculous. That's Thousand Island dressing. No, that's the Big Mac.
Yeah,
the Big Mac. It's Thousand Island dressing. Yeah. I bought Thousand Island dressing at the store the other day. Squirted it on my salad. I was like, holy shit, just like a fucking Big Mac. I was like, who knew?
You know what I found out? I thought this was fantastic. It was one of those, this is how stupid people are. I think it was A&W. There was this thing circulating, said that years ago, A&W wanted to compete with McDonald's. So they came out with a third pound burger, and people didn't like it because it sounded smaller than a quarter pounder. I'm like, oh God, we're lost cause.
And people wonder why I want to leave this place.
But it's no different anywhere else.
That's
really
not. It is different. They have their own problems, but they're not this. They're not these problems. Do you know what I mean? Like everybody has their own problems, and every place is fucked up. But this place is fucked up the way it's fucked up. And it's like, when I go hang out in other people's fucked up families, I think it's funny.
Yeah.
Like, right? Like, I go hang out, plenty of my friends got fucked up families, and I go hang out with them, and I think that shit is hilarious. I think their parents are a hoot, as they say. I'm like, like, because they're not my parents, so I can love them and think they're amazingly funny characters in a what would ultimately be a sitcom. You know what I mean? Where the jokes just write themselves. You know what I mean? I watch it like, wow, what a crazy place to grow up. But not to me, because I didn't grow up there.
Exactly.
You
You can
know?
look at it from the outside. It goes back to what you said with if you
Mhm.
lived in that life for 2 weeks, you could solve all their problems. But because you grew up there, or whoever did grow up there,
Right.
they're too ingrained in them.
Yeah. Yeah. That's the problem. Is I I want to learn how to see. Here's the thing, right? I have the distinct feeling that as much as I have these problems, my guess is that they're pretty garden variety. That most people walk around with a head full of anxiety and neuroses and all kinds of things. And we've just habitualized the talk in our head to be super ordinary and normal. We just spend our days like this. It's just normal. And we don't think that that's weird. And we have our shortcomings and our things. And we don't actually think that, like, we've just normalized. I don't want to say no, maybe it's let me make it personal, not put it on everybody else. I walk around most of the day with all kinds of kooky shit in my head, right? And that kooky shit in my head sometimes stops me from doing the things I need to do because it stands in the way of them. Like I stand in the way of them by the kooky shit I think. Here's the thing. There's a solution to that. Like I don't have to live the rest of my life like this. You know what I mean? Like there's a book, a person, a fucking hammer whacked to the head, or whatever that can help me sort through this. Like I don't have to just accept that whatever foolishness goes on in my head has to stay there. Like like I don't have to stay a slave to my past because there are clearly people who've had it significantly worse than me that figured out how to uncouple them, how to see beyond how they grew up, or see beyond the room they happen to be sitting in currently, or see beyond the life they currently have to be able to create something new. There's plenty of people who've done that. And I've done that in many areas of my life, been able to see beyond whatever the current thing is. But in other ways, it's difficult for me sometimes to see beyond what is immediately in front of me. It feels eternal, even though it may not be. It may be something that can be fixed or adjusted or recalibrated in me that will make it so that I don't see that particular thing as eternal. And I could, it doesn't feel like a waste of time for me to try to tackle it. And I feel like there are solutions out there. The thing is that I'm only able to fill the holes I know I have. Like the gaps in my brain, I can fill those partially, but some of them I can't even see because I have too many landmines around my own psycho. Like again, we tie it into the people from today. Like there are certain trigger things. There's certain things that trigger your self defenses, right? And when we talk about, there's things that black people talk about all the time when it comes to dealing with white people, and I'm sure white people have their things too. And I don't think it's a black white thing. I think it's just a thing because black people have their own triggers when it comes to black people, right? And one of like, there's certain things that when black people say it, there's a triggered automatic response, generally speaking, from a white person that is something white people over a certain age, because young people don't do it in the same way, right? But black people do those same things, right? Like if a black kid, if a young black child in a typical grew up in the time period you and I grew up in, came and was listening to Motley Crue or something, people went, "That's weird. You're black." And black people would almost shame that person into not doing that. Not all black people, obviously, right? But many ordinary black folks would shame that person, go, "You're not black." In the same way, but white people do the same thing. I've heard this a lot in my life, like, "Oh my God, you're the whitest black person I know." And I'm like, why? Because my mother was an English teacher and a speech therapist, because I speak this way and I have a diverse taste in music. Like that makes me white somehow, right? Like that we have these ideas, and I think these ideas trap us unless we can move, unless we can free ourselves from them in some way. I don't know. I'm losing my train of thought because you
I
look
was
like you
going
have
to
something to
say,
say.
I
Yeah, but go
wish
ahead. Yeah.
I wish we could track where you started to where you
I
end.
do too, because I thought it was interesting and then I lost it
Well,
somewhere in there.
it reminded me of the analogy earlier of the pachinko thing, where it was just sort of like all
Right. It
over the,
just, yeah, it's like, I
because
don't know
where
what
it
the fuck was
started,
going on in there.
that's I
Oh,
really
yeah. Yeah,
I
I
had a
know where it started.
flash of a thought, but I'm not sure how to get back there. You had said that you had the thoughts in your head, the anxieties, and then you went somewhere really interesting, and I was fixated for a moment on what I think is one of our problems as people is, I believe you said that we all have these thoughts and these emotions and these insecurities, and I agree with that. And I think in large part our problem in humanity could be that we all think our problems are the most important, and they are to
Absolutely.
us because they're our problems.
Absolutely.
But I think where the disconnect comes in, where the actual problem comes in, is, and this I'm trying to tie this to forgiveness. We think we deserve to be forgiven for our problems because, hey,
Hmm.
this shit's going on in my life. How dare you blame me? Don't you understand what's going on? Whereas we don't do it to others. I think we have such egos that we think we're so self-important. You don't understand my childhood. You don't understand what I've been through. I deserve to feel this way, be this angry, be that, whatever our faults are, we can excuse them away, and we don't have to do it to others because, well, why don't you get over your shit? And the reality of the situation, I think, is we all need to get over our own shit and
Absolutely.
not
Absolutely.
blame or judge others. I think we've already said that kind of already tonight.
Yeah.
But like I said, you it just kept going. I'm like, this is fascinating, but he's also losing me because I don't know where, I
Yeah.
can't
Yeah.
keep up.
Well, what it was, here's the thing. When it comes to what was going on today, and today might not be a good example of it, but when I see people who are like anti-maskers and anti this and feel like their rights are being infringed upon, there's something in their psychological DNA that told them that any kind of thing that appears to be like that and is not convenient for them is somehow an infringement upon their rights. Not
Yeah,
being able to walk around with an AK-47 is like
they
the
take it
right to
personal.
bear. Right. It's like, what? So you think that it's perfectly, you think that that's what they meant. Like and it's this ability to like pick and choose, right? Here they meant this literally, so we're gonna follow it literally. Here they were just being figurative, right? It's like, okay, but when they said the right to bear arms, that was when you had a gun and you shot it and a BB flew out of it,
Yeah.
and then you had to take a thing and pack it again and then put a ball in it and then shoot it. That's what it was. It wasn't like turtle shooting with AK-47s. You know what I mean?
Well,
Like,
it's the same analogy as freedom of speech doesn't mean you get to walk into a restaurant and yell fire. I mean,
right,
we
exactly.
we figured that one out. Why
Right.
we are so stymied by the gun one is impressive
Yeah.
in a way. I
I
mean,
mean,
it's
and
sad,
listen,
but it's impressive.
I'm all for the right to protect yourself and the right to bear arms. I think it's perfectly reasonable if people carry guns, if we give our people a different psychological makeup. Because when they say things like, well, everybody in Switzerland has a gun, yep, and everybody at 18 has to join the army, and
Yep.
everybody has to do this, and everybody has to do this
Training.
too.
Yep.
And they're also, it's socialist, which means it has a different kind of sense of community and a different kind of sense of everything. And there's a sense of interdependence and blah 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 blah, and this
Yeah.
and the other thing, and so forth and so on. And just like people, there's no drinking age in France practically, and yet the amount of drunk driving accidents that 18-year-olds have is significantly less than over here. Why is that? They've been drinking since they're 12. Why do they smash up less cars? It's like, because we're wired funny. Like Americans are wired, like not funny, but like everybody's wiring, like our pre-adaptability, we've adapted to a certain kind of mindset. And they've adapted to another kind of mindset. And other people, like culturally speaking, there's a cultural ethos, I would say, that America has that makes us irresponsible with certain things like drugs, alcohol, guns, these things that in other places they have other problems. And
Yeah.
things that we handle really well, they fuck up royally. You know what I mean? And we go, why? What's wrong with these people? How can they just can't get this? Boy, in these other countries, they just can't get that shit together. But over here, we have this other dysfunction that is just baked into our culture. This right to kill people, this right to take shit that you know what I mean? This like, we have these things that have been baked into our culture that feel like rights. And they're not rights, they're beliefs. Do you know what I mean? Right? It's not a, it's
Well,
not a right, it's a belief. It's
it's
not
a
the
belief
same
in a piece of
thing.
paper that says it's a right. That's
Right. It's a,
it.
it's a, right, but it's like, and I'm not arguing that the Bible isn't true,
I was talking
but
the
when,
Constitution.
well, I know,
Okay.
but when people say that, how do you know the Bible is true? Well, because it says it's true. I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, that can't be the reason,
Oh, it
right?
is for
Right,
many, but I'm
right,
let's not even
like,
get down that path.
like you can't tell me that the Bible is true because it says it's true. That's not a reason. I'm not saying there aren't lots of other reasons that you could say that might be valid. That's not one of them. You know what I mean? And like this idea that a bunch of dudes could just write down some shit on a piece of paper and say, because we wrote this down, that makes it true. We're the founding fathers. And then for the next 10,000 years, everybody has to abide by that. Are you mad? Like, that's insanity.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's insanity. Speaking of your boy Jesus, that's what he was supposed to come about for. Because he was like, the Mosaic law is done. We need a new one now. I am now the official sacrifice. So we don't have to follow Mosaic law anymore. And Donald Trump is fat white beard drinking cheeseburger eating Jesus. And
It really is.
he's
And to bring this
freeing us.
full circle before we sign off,
Freeing us from our tyranny.
he but that is how he was raised. That's who he is. People wonder how he can be that way, but when you are
Absolutely.
given everything for your whole life, he is
And
the
treated like
epitome.
shit.
What's that?
And treated like shit. And treated like shit. I heard his dad was a real fucking
Yeah.
douchebag.
Yeah. Well,
His dad was a real fucking asshole.
he's
Like, and
entitled, but has a weak ego, and it's.
right.
I mean,
I mean,
in a
it's so
way,
it's obvious. That's the thing. Well, continue.
I was just gonna say, in a way, he deserves pity. I mean, he's a fucking rich piece of shit president of the state, all of it, but he's also a very sad human being. He elicits anger in me, and I don't like that. I should pity him. I can't really bring myself to, but I understand that even as someone as awful as him, I mean, probably deserves empathy. I don't know why, but it just seems like the only way to get past all this bullshit is to find a way to empathize with someone that horrible. I get stuck on anger, but that's just me. I'm not angry. I have detached amusement to most of it, but
yeah. But I think but this is, we often get to this point. Like at the end of the day, everyone suffers. Everybody's life is hard in some way, shape, or form, whether that person be rich and white and beautiful, or Mexican and poor and beautiful. I don't want to say anybody's ugly, because that's rude. But no, I'm kidding.
Poor
But you
white
know what I mean?
trash and
Right.
beautiful Selma Hayek. Reverse the two.
Right. Right. Exactly. Right. Like everybody suffers. You know what I mean? Like everybody has hard times in life, and everybody like loses people they care about and has traumatic shit happen to them no matter what. And I think in that way, everyone deserves their own humanity. Right? Like we need to see people as human, whether they are our enemy or not. Our enemy, whether they are on the opposite side of the field or not. They're still human beings who have a life that suffer. Like like what you said, when the guy got shot, when the woman got shot today, you were like, that's somebody's daughter. And it's like when I heard the amount of empathy that came out of people's mouths when that happened, And again, not to make this uber political, but I was like, yeah, Breonna Taylor, somebody's daughter too, and she was literally just chilling on her couch. Do you know what I mean? Like she wasn't doing anything, from what I understand. It was a mistake, and I get that it was a mistake, but that doesn't mean that she doesn't deserve compassion, and that she's not also somebody's daughter. And while we have to understand that it was a mistake, in this country, we have a real big ethic of somebody needs to pay. That's our motto. Somebody has to pay,
Yeah.
right? Like that's how we
Eye for an
justify
eye.
90% of what we do. They blew up our ship, they got to pay. They blew up our building, they got to pay. They did this, they got to pay. Generally, it means we want their oil. But
Yeah.
like, but at the end of the day, we have a real ethic of that. But when it comes, and this is again when black people say we don't feel like people see us as human, it's when black people get shot, there's always a reason to justify it. And when there's a justifiable reason to shoot a white person, they're like, oh my God, what are you doing? We're just breaking into a federal building where where all the leaders of our country are. And I'm not saying that that woman doesn't deserve pity, because this is, again, I feel bad. I don't feel pity for them, because
Right.
they're not pitiful people, but I feel bad that their beliefs led them to think that they weren't going to get shot when they walked in there, because I would have never done that. I would have assumed that if I did that, I get shot. Do you know what I mean? And now people go, oh, that's just ridiculous. You're just being whatever, thinking the cops are going to shoot you because you're black. I'm like, no, they're going to shoot me because I'm being a criminal. And I deserve to get shot, but I'm putting myself in a position in which I could very easily be shot, justifiably so. And yet, when they are in that very position, and when they say to black people, do what you're told, listen to the police, hands at 10 and 2, if you just did what you're told, you wouldn't get shot. And then they're breaking in a building and getting shot and think that that's reasonable, think that that's unfair. That's where racism comes to bite them in the ass, because they believe that they were shocked.
Yeah.
Like I heard the comment, they were shocked. And I'm like, man, you guys have no fucking clue what is going on here. And I feel like they need to be, like, we need to show them compassion, because the idea that you're bulletproof, or that you know what I mean, or that you should be allowed to break in and kidnap senators or do whatever the fuck, what were they getting in there? What were they going to do? Hold them? What the fuck was their plan?
I
You know
don't
what I mean? Like we're gonna bust in and run through the halls and TP the place,
I don't think
or
they
what?
had a
Like,
plan, but I just looked
yeah.
something up, and let's end on this. I was glancing at my phone because I wanted to make sure I wasn't crazy. I remembered a story. I just
Well,
took a
just
two
because the story's there doesn't mean you're not crazy. But continue.
true. Just took a 2 word Google talk about you again started here and ended up here, and I want to stick to here with empathy and forgiveness and um it was 2007 according to the article. You remember there was a shooter that went into an Amish school and he shot 10 young girls and killed 5 of them. Do you remember that?
Vaguely, yes.
Do you remember what happened next? Because this is what I really wanted to Google.
Mm.
The Amish community, he killed himself.
Oh, didn't they forgive him or something?
They reached out to his
Yeah.
family and talked to his mother and said, "We forgive your son." Like, insane empathy there. Like, not just,
Yeah.
I mean, they made the statement, they said, "We forgive him his actions. He must have been in a lot of pain to do what he did." But they went so far as to make it personal with his family. And
Yeah.
I don't know if you can label something as gold star forgiveness, but that's probably about as close as you
That'll
can
be
come.
it. I mean, if that's the bar, we're all
Yeah.
pretty short. We fall, many of I fall short. I won't say
Yeah,
I
I
won't
fall
speak
well
for
short,
anybody,
but
I fall
well,
short.
we're talking about trying to forgive the people today, and that's an ego talking to forgive these people for what they did today, because they're probably saying, hey, you know, they're on the other side saying, we can't forgive you for being liberal pieces of shit and hating America. I mean, that's the problem, is you have two sides that both think they're ultimately right. And somehow we need to find a way to be Amish and just forgive everything. And that's a stupid statement, but hopefully you get the gist I'm trying to give as we say goodnight.
I mean, and I think you're 100% correct. I mean, that's the thing. When I look at the people today, I do feel bad for them. I feel I wish that people would take their suffering seriously. Like when I say the things I say about white people, it's not out of anger. And it's not out of pity either. It's out of understanding that like as much as black people have been duped and brainwashed, so have white people.
Yeah.
White people have been duped and brainwashed also. And we have to understand that there isn't a right and a wrong. There's a set of beliefs, and those beliefs no longer work. And we need to find the common ground. We need to find the things that we all do agree on and build from there. And but we're taught to be judgmental and critical. Do you know what I mean? Like we're taught to do the opposite of gratitude and forgiveness.
And that's what we need to see past.
Yeah, and it's not easy, but I think it's possible. You know what I mean? And that's like, I really think that there's something, I don't know what we can do about it, but I really do think it's possible.
We can do this podcast and hope people listen to it and learn from us because
indeed
we're pretty fucking awesome. I think we just call forgiveness.
Well, I mean, it's our humility that makes us so great.
Yes. Hey, I have good news, bad news for the listeners as we sign off for the viewers. I said this on the audio version of the podcast with Jake, but it really comes into, narrows into focus here. This Saturday on the 9th, you have a decision to make, viewers. I know that most of you, an overwhelming majority of you, probably 99% of you, live near Platteville, Wisconsin. So that being the case, I have a gig there on Saturday, and come see me. Now, the Katie Henry Band is also doing a virtual performance on Facebook, a live stream, which Barrett will be a part of. And if for some reason you don't happen to live near Platteville, then you can find Katie Henry, the Katie Henry Band on Facebook, wherever you live, and watch his virtual performance. But
yes, the 1% of you that don't live there,
that don't live near Platteville, Wisconsin, can watch the Zoom event. Otherwise, the Arthur House, Saturday, the 9th, at 8 p.m. in Arthur, Wisconsin, right outside of Platteville, or Katie Henry Band on Facebook Live, also on the 9th. Visit Katie Henry Band Music for the exact start time. All right, my friend, good talking to you.
Yeah, you as well. Yeah, man. Yeah. I'm not going to go pass the fuck out now. I'm so tired. It's silly.
You're talking about the bags under your eyes. Visit antargoodwin.com. Visit nathantimmel.com. Bye.
Like death warmed over.